You just can't go wrong with waking up Cerberus. I got to tell you, is Mozart not the way to start your day? Good morning, everyone. You've got Waking Up Cerberus. You've got Gregory Junkbond Carpenter here, leading off with Suzanne Superstar Sherman and the one and only Booger in places unknown yonder and shall never be shared with another human being. Jeff Johnson behind the control panels, Mr. Producer Extraordinaire, bringing you the best top in all of radio talk show land. Suzanne.
Amen to that. Welcome back on home territory, my friend. You are out cavorting around. We'll get into your story in a little bit. I want to thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm Suzanne Sherman here on the Cerberus Radio Network, where we defend liberty and freedom from the flames of tyranny. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Cerberus Radio Network. We have a page on SoundCloud. We have a SoundCloud downloads, all for free. We're uploading those, keeping everything current in case you missed our episodes. We have a YouTube channel as well, Cerberus Radio Network. I believe we have a live chat going on. You can send me messages on Facebook, Suzanne Sherman. I can respond to them on the air, but I still have 20 days left in my Facebook correctional facility sentence to go. You can download, we have an app on Radio Co. If you go to our CRN page, both of them, that and Cerberus Radio Network on Facebook, you can click and listen to our content 24/7. Jeff does a great job of keeping the content there fresh, and thank you for your efforts, Jeff. All right, Greg, I think you and Booger have a really interesting story to tell. First of all, let's start off. Where have you been all week? And I think Booger had some issues the past week. So you guys were gone. We missed you, but we're glad you're back.
Well, thanks. It's good to be back. I have been cavorting around the Southeastern Asia part of the world. I was just sharing with Suzanne and Jeff and Booger. I was fanning out all of the boarding passes that I had to do. I went from here in the People's Democratic Republic of Virginia to San Francisco to Singapore to Kuala Lumpur. I mean, I've been up and around all over the place. I was training UN police, and it's been very, very exciting. As a matter of fact, they're national police for each country that was at the training. So we had Malaysian police, very exciting. As a matter of fact, Indonesian national police for each country that was at the training. I had some horrible feedback there. That's okay. Malaysian, Indonesian, Filipino police, and Thai police. The cool thing was at the end of each of the training sessions, we had each of the police forces give an overview of their national intelligence and police infrastructure. So we had translators, which was very helpful considering how many languages there are indigenous to just Indonesia. But of course, the Thai folks have a completely different written language. And they put their slides up and immediately realized that nobody in the rest of the training session could read a doggone thing they wrote. But these things happen, and we worked through it. So when we went to Bali in Indonesia, the second week, we were able to give that guidance up front to the Thai police and said, hey, by the way, if you're going to have slides showing your overview, please do it in a language that we can all understand. And then they said, okay. Now, one of the interesting things that happened when I was there, when I was in Bali, so Indonesia is obviously 95% Muslim country. But Bali, the city of Bali itself, is like 99% Hindu, which is inside of Indonesia. On Thursday of last week was the Hindu New Year Day, and it's called Silent Day, Nyepi. So during the Silent Day, nobody drives, nobody goes to work, nobody goes out of their house, nobody turns on the electricity, nobody uses the internet, all phone services down. It was a complete day. They said it's supposed to be a day of reflection and to think about the peacefulness of coming in with a new, coming into the new year. However, some of us felt a little isolated, so we made our way across the hotel grounds there to an area where we were allowed to have light, and we did raid the bar. And we were able to have a couple cigars, hit the bar, and enjoy the new year coming in that way. But the rest of Bali, if you've never experienced something like this, it's amazing. The whole city is silent. We heard some chickens, we heard some dogs. That was it, though. There no humans spoke outside of a couple of the resorts that were downtown in Bali. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. Have any of you guys been to Bali before?
No, I have not.
No, I have never been there, but given the fact that it is still snowing out here, it sounds really good right now.
It was nice. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, I spoke with Mrs. Junkbond. We were driving to the grocery store. We're going to go, do a resupply because the kids ate everything over the last couple of weeks. And I looked at the temperature. I said, "Oh, 41 in Fahrenheit. How nice." 2 days ago, it was 41 Celsius
Oh my gosh.
in Bali. This is a welcomed change. So it was completely different. In Langkawi in Malaysia, where we were the first week, it stayed about 35 degrees Celsius, which is about 93 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit.
And you got humidity out there, right?
You sure do. You got a little bit. It's between 50 and 75% this time of year. This is considered the best time of year to go and vacation in Langkawi at 95 degrees and 50 to 75% humidity. The other times of years, it's supposed to be what do you call it? The monsoon season. In Bali, it was terribly different. Langkawi is positioned in such a place in Malaysia that it's isolated to an extent. So the weather patterns don't affect it as much as it would the rest of the island. So there's no breezes or anything like that. The In Bali, it's a little bit more open in the archipelago there. So it was only about the highs were only about 85.
Oh,
So
that's amazing.
that was nice. We had 98% humidity every day. So it compensated for being cooler, except for the last day and a half where we had gotten about 4 hours of rain the day before. And then all of a sudden it dropped right off with the humidity and everything. A few breezes came in and the temperatures dropped into the upper 70s with humidity about 35% for the last day and a half, which just made it perfect. So at the end of Silent Day into the last day we were there, it was just perfect.
Weather porn.
So that's what I did on my winter vacation, and now spring break is coming up out here in the People's Democratic Republic. So, but one thing I did notice that was quite amazing that everyone in Bali, uh, they everybody there was no one who violated the silent day requirement. Everybody stayed in their house. Everybody was quiet. You had a city of like 7, 8 million people. Everyone was inside, except, the non-Hindu people at the hotels. And they were given a little bit of leeway to do stuff. People didn't argue with each other, didn't fight with each other. It was amazing. I think we saw 2 traffic lights in Bali, and it wasn't because you needed them per se. It just made things at certain intersections a little bit easier. The rest of the time, people just merge with each other. They look out for each other. They make intelligent decisions, which people here in the People's Democratic Republic can't do anymore for themselves.
By them,
You know,
all on their own?
yeah, every time you came to a four corners, people automatically stopped on their own in Malaysia and in Indonesia.
No,
They just naturally could wait for each other and say, "Okay, your turn to go."
we have roundabouts in Park City, and they're supposed to be really easy. People just cannot figure them out.
It's the overall
You Agenda
stupidity.
21.
I totally get that it is Agenda 21, but you got to admit they are a lot more convenient than the regular intersections.
Oh, they certainly are.
Oh, I don't think so at all. I mean,
I-
because people don't even know how to
Sure.
do it, so it
Sure.
just destroys traffic flow. I hate them.
So no, I think it really it improves traffic flow. I've been looking at some studies of that, and maybe in Pennsylvania, where people, they have a different perspective of it, it doesn't work as well. But in other parts of the country, especially Massachusetts, traffic flow has increased by about 40 to 45%.
Because, if you want to make a left turn, we all agree that you get that little green light that tells you when you can go. And then if you don't have that, how many people wait because they can't get all the way out there and have to run red lights? This way, the traffic just keeps flowing. And the other day I was doing that. There was a state trooper right there, and I'm caught out in the middle of the intersection making a left turn fully on red, but it was green when I went out there. I'm thinking, I bet he's going to pull me over. Unfortunately, he didn't.
Be in real jail, not only Facebook jail.
Right, exactly. What do you and Booker have to talk about today after you wrap up on it?
Well, I have one other thing that I wanted to add that I thought was exceedingly amazing about my trip. I've taken, I travel quite a bit for my job, folks, and one thing that I always counted on was the high quality that you have in U.S. based airliners. Well, I learned that that's not the case. I was on a airline called Garuda Indonesia, and immediately the first thought that comes to your mind is like, okay, but it was amazing. I was on a flight for 2.5 hours from Bali to Singapore. They gave me a full meal back in loser class. I had snacks. I had everything I could want to eat. If I watch, I maintained a moderate level of intake, and they were the number one airline for customer service, 2013 to 2017, beating out all other airliners in the world. And then I took several flights on Malaysia Air. Do you know that those sons of guns had the chutzpah to distribute as a snack salted peanuts? I have here in my hand the evidence that they have distributed the deadly salted peanuts to everyone on that airplane, attempting to kill any whining millennial who might come near a salted peanut in the cabin. I was appalled.
How many casualties?
Unfortunately, there were zero casualties. Well, fortunately, nobody else from the States was there. So fortunately, there were no casualties. And then every single flight I took with Malaysian Air, even if it was a 1-hour flight, I got a meal. This is something that, and the bottom line is they didn't suck. Like if you get in the back of United or American for one of those overseas flight, thank God I was in, at least for the 15-hour flight from DC, from San Francisco to Singapore. I had economy plus, so at least I had a little bit more leg room, and you get a little bit better service up there. But man, those meals, they really stunk. When I got to Malaysian Air, I didn't realize how bad I had been treated on United. I couldn't believe it. And they always complain about the costs and everything. So I did a little bit more look into it. And I'm sure Booker can tell you just as well as anybody else that most of the problems that our U.S. based airlines face now are U.S. government regulations and the undermining of the free industry, which caused the rates to go up. But that's a story for another day.
And I just want to jump in here and welcome all our new listeners to Traveling with Cerberus, all traveling all the time.
I'll be here for 3 days, and then I'll be back out flying out again. So,
yes, you're right on all the airlines. You go down to Latin America, most of the airlines still serve a full meal. A whole lot better service.
Sure, you remember that last trip we took down on Copa Airlines, right? To go visit our friends. And I'll tell you what, every leg of that trip We even got Booger upgraded to first class on one of the really long legs just because he was with me. I don't know how that happened, but they said, "Oh, you're traveling together. Well, we'll upgrade him too."
Yes.
I know this wasn't what we're going to talk about, but what about security for these flights? Is it as god awful as TSA, or do they much more?
They do a lot less and they accomplish a lot more. It's
Yeah.
really amazing. It's really amazing. You don't need the big 3D security things. They can't see through solid objects. So I brought a bunch of several copies of my book, Reverse Deception, with us because the UN had bought them to use as textbooks for the course that we're given. So, of course, TSA stops me. I was like, well, we need to look at what you have. Okay. And they open it up, and here's the books. And they said, what are these? I'm not kidding you. What are these? Those are what we call books. And he didn't like my attitude, apparently. I don't know. I just thought I was trying to be, very straightforward and honest about it. He goes, and what's in the other bag? I said, there's books in the other bag too. I said, I'm sure you saw it on the x-ray. And he decided to inspect the other bag too. He said, are you sure there's nothing else in here? I said, my clothes? I don't know. What are you fishing for? Like I had something hidden inside. And he opened up the books and started flipping through the pages of some of the books like he was looking for something to be hidden in there. So those things, they haven't worked since they were implemented. They don't work really well now. There's no reason to think that the technology is going to be good enough anytime in the near future to make them work as advertised. So it's really the illusion of security that people are accepting in an intrusive manner. We didn't face those types of things anywhere else in the world. Why? That's because remember a guy, Tom Ridge? We talked about it before. Tom Ridge is a guy who was on the board of directors of the company that was a subcontractor to Halliburton that made these things. Why the hell do you think we have them in the first place? I digress.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't mean to take us off subject. You guys had a subject to talk about that Suzanne and I have never even heard of, and I'm sure most of our listeners have not heard of either. So I'll let you guys get back to it.
You want me to start off here with the beginning of this thing as far as I trace it, Greg?
I think so. I think if we start at the beginning, people will be able to follow us a lot better as we get deep into some of the weird stuff later on.
Yeah, this is one of these things. You're the cyber guy much more than I am. I just study threats to, I'm a demo guy, okay? I just study threats to national security. And I ended up, the guy that actually has brought a lot of this up is Brendan O'Connell. Of course, he decided to totally leave any Google, YouTube platform, and I've got to find him somewhere. I know he started another site. But he actually spent 3 years in prison because of his work for hate crimes in Australia, if you can imagine that. I think it was the Israeli defense minister or something personally flew to Australia to deal with this guy. Okay. And what it basically starts out, Israel, and this is how we know so much of this, are good Israelis. When we get into this Israel thing, a lot of people think, oh, that's anti-Semitic. You guys are against Israel. No, the Israeli government has been taken over by international banking interests, just like every other major government. And it's good Israelis that bring a lot of this stuff to the forefront. And we have to make them, I'd say, the core of the solution, not, spew hatred toward them. But if you really get into this whole thing was started in 1979. It's called the Telpiot program. Telpiot is actually a place in Israel. But, and I've run onto different things of how the name for Telpiot was brought into this and named on the program. But it comes out of Unit 8200, which am I hitting the title? It's kind of like their cyber expert unit.
That's right. Yeah, that's the elite cyber unit in for the Mossad.
For the Mossad. Okay, and in 1979, this whole thing was they formed it up with a Professor Felix Dotan, and now I may be butchering these names, and a Professor Shani Yatsin. Okay,
Right.
they're the guys that actually kind of started this.
Yeah, they're
So
out of Hebrew University, and it's really interesting to see how they put it together because it was done completely behind the scenes as part of a covert type of an operation. Um, they had students come in and they helped them. They would get degrees in the program, right? What was it? Physics. I think physics and computer sciences, stuff like that they were teaching them, and they were in Israeli Air Force uniforms, right?
yes, yeah, that's what their cyber unit is under, is the Air Force, if I am correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And, this thing started out, and it's actually, some people will try to define it as one thing. Like, as you and I both know, you've got the ARC processor, which are inside all of the Intel chips, which are being manufactured in Tel Aviv. And some of the information I have is stated it was just about all the Intel chips are being manufactured over in Israel. And if I'm not mistaken, a huge chunks of Silicon Valley tech has been moved to Tel Aviv. And a lot
Yeah,
of people do not know that.
yeah, that's right. A lot of work has moved over to Tel Aviv, and the AMD chips also. There was an issue with them. It wasn't just the Intel chips, but it was a combination, mostly Intel. I'd say about 80% of the Intel processor chips and a small percentage of the AMD processor chips had the same link back to the Talpiot program. Kind of an interesting thing. Why would it be linked back to an intelligence program, right? You start to wonder. The same reason, you would think that. Just as a matter of fact, just the other day when I was in, where was I? In Indonesia. That's right. I was in Indonesia, and the news came out that the NSA had just offered up free software for getting backdoor access to computers. And this is supposed to be freeware for anybody in the world who wanted to use it. Now, come on.
Yeah.
Stupid is stupid and dumb is dumb and smart is smart. If the NSA is going to give you software that is free backdoor software, don't you think that there's a problem? I mean, don't you think that there's another backdoor to the backdoor that's going to give them access to your stuff? Come on, who wants to use that?
Absolutely. I mean, it would be equivalent to a organization doing breaking and enterings, offering free home security systems. You really have to look at, hey, what's their motivation behind putting the money into this free software? There has to be a motivation. And
Right.
you have to be very foolish. Just go, oh my God, I can't wait to get that on my system. And yes, the whole
Yeah, it's
danger.
amazing.
Yes, with this Telpiot program is its personnel in key positions, and we'll get into all these incredibly dangerous positions that these Telpiot program graduates, damn, I got a train coming, occupy in Colorado and other places. And then you've got the hardwired back door, which it doesn't matter what software you have, they can still get in. Okay, I'm going to let a train pass.
Okay, then I'll take over for right now. So now, folks, there's other programs out there uh, that do similar things to what the software chips in the Talpiot program can do. So what we're looking at are chips that offer an immediate and unremovable vulnerability for access to your computer, for all the information that's on your computer. Okay, that's the bottom line of what the Intel chip vulnerability is about. So if you have, for example, a program like Waze that people use for GPSing, going from one location to another. You get points, right? You get points for how often you use it, and these things are all cool to get you to use the program, et cetera, et cetera.
Call them
Well,
road goodies.
what's that?
We call them road goodies. That's
Road
what they call
goodies, right?
road goodies.
Okay,
There can't be anything nefarious with this. Please don't
right.
say that road goodies are a bad thing.
Well, road goodies are actually pretty bad. They're mapping and tracking your pattern of life, and the software from Waze itself was made in Israel by former Israeli intelligence officers.
Wow.
How do you feel now?
I have to laugh because when we were doing our trip in 2015, my son had Waze on his phone and I had it on mine, and we'd see that a road goodie was coming up, and we would literally stick our phones towards the windshield to see who could collect the road goodie first. So I feel rather foolish right now.
Were you guys doing the Pokemon thing, going around looking for the Pokemon?
I will tell you, I never ever did that. And in fact, we've
I'm
talked about
starting
that.
to wonder. Starting to wonder.
No, I know what I just said is cause for concern, but I know I never did Pokemon. In fact, we talked about that when that was a big phase, everybody, or a fad, everybody was just walking even worse than they are now, staring at their telephones. It made for some great shows on personal security.
It's exciting, and of course, there's software that's been out the last couple of years too that now allows you to look at your screen and through the camera in the back end of your phone, see the sidewalk in front of you in the background of you playing Pokemon. So if
Wow.
you're texting or playing Pokemon or whatever it is, you can get this software that will let you see the sidewalk in front of you so you don't walk into people. It's unbelievable how lazy we become.
As we talk about all this, I'm thinking back to earlier in the show. By the way, everybody, if you just tuned in, we are doing 2 hours today, and we started an hour earlier, and the government stole an hour from us. So I'm just starting to warm up here. Unfortunately, it was too late for my intro this morning, but here we are. And this whole thing with Waze, and I want to share a story. We're not going to get into it yet, but Junk Bond later, I want you to please extrapolate on Zuckerberg's promise to encrypt and protect our privacy on Facebook. He's going to maybe my 8 and 10-year-old comments will be used against me in the Facebook court of public opinion.
Absolutely. There's no statute of limitations on comments in Facebook.
No,
we just read this article this morning that one of the MPs from France could possibly go to jail for a tweet that she had sent out showing how violent ISIS was and how telling people to beware and be warned about these guys because they're dangerous and deadly. She could actually end up going to jail for that. So if you don't think you're a political target in one way or another, if you get the knock on the door, you can recognize and understand and fully accept the fact that you too are a political target.
Hey, Greg, I'll read the headline for the folks out there so you guys can find this article. It's French, and notice how they qualify her. French far-right leader Marine Le Pen faces imprisonment for anti-ISIS tweet. So there's the article. Just look for that, folks.
That's awesome. And there's more people we could throw in jail because remember, it's only in the States that we have a very high percentage of people in jail per capita. Other countries in the world don't have that, so we have to bring everybody else up to meet our per capita. It's a business. It's a business plan.
Yep.
Hey, watch it. You're messing with my job there, buddy.
What have you corrected lately, Mr. Corrections Officer? I rest my case. Where's the clapping? Where's the audience clapping thing? That was a good one.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go back to Talpiot.
Yeah. Okay. One of the
the train's gone.
Yeah, train's gone. Okay. Yeah, we'll get in this. What's really interesting on all this stuff is how many key positions Talpiot program graduates occupy or have occupied. Okay. One of them I'll bring up is a Daniel Lewin. Okay. He started the Akamai company and
Yep.
it handles all of the internet data load. Now, mysteriously, he was the first casualty of 9/11, and no one has been able to explain in any rational manner how he was deemed the first casualty. And he's a Telpiot program graduate.
Yep.
Colorado seems to be the hotbed for all of these Telpiot program and Israeli cyber experts. And guess where our cyber command is?
Dum dum dum.
In Colorado. Okay,
There it
there we
is.
are. And when you look at a Telpiot program graduate, was the guy that started the company that is still handling all of the internet data loads. And that they have this hardwired backdoor, regardless of the software you have, security software, they can still get in with its hardwired backdoor.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I mean, and they have made, they had what they call the Samson option in Israel, where they have targeted with nukes almost all the capitals around Europe, and for failing to support Israel, they will attack. And it's called the Samson option, going back to when Samson took the temple down. And you can actually get on the internet and look at the Samson option. They have had different military leaders come up with it.
Yeah.
And
now it's not. Now it hasn't been declassified by Israel. Different military leaders have talked about it in different ways, that people have been able to put information together about what really is going on. It's one of those, if you're not with us, you're against us concepts. And
yes,
this is the mentality of it.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
can I interject something really quick? One thing I like to do, and I come across, because this is a new topic to me, I like to see where people can get their information, and typically you'll type in a Google search. So if you look up Talpiot program, I'm going to read to you what first pops up, and of course it's Wikipedia, and tell me if this is in any way in conformance with the description I'm hearing from you two. According to Wiki, the Talpiot program is an Israeli Defense Forces training program for recruits who have demonstrated outstanding academic ability in the sciences and leadership potential. Graduates pursue double higher education while serving in the Army, then utilize their expertise to further IDF research and development in technological leadership positions. Sounds kind of nice. I get the warm and fuzzies when I read this.
It sounds stellar, like something like the Wall Street Journal or Forbes or Business Insider would write, right?
Oh, yeah. They scrubbed when Brendan O'Connell got in his big trial, and he actually went to all the security agencies in Australia, and he had massive evidence that equated to proof about the nefarious goals of the Telpiot program, and it was all scrubbed from the net. Okay, every bit of it was scrubbed from the net. The Leon Wind that he was into it with, because the guy was a Telpiot program graduate and was installing all the sensor systems and everything on their nuclear subs. And he was showing photographs publicly to people about this, talking major crap. And Brendan O'Connell went after him. You cannot find hardly anything about this guy on the internet now, this Leon Wind. The internet was scrubbed.
And I find it interesting because, as Booger was saying, they're associated with the 8200, Unit 8200, which is their IT, cybersecurity, stuff like that. But they're also associated with Unit 81. And that is much more locked down on security. A lot of the graduates who come out of this program end up in Unit 81. You never hear from them again. So there's really a very, what do you say, polarized distribution. Either they're really far out in the public and you can see everything and anything about them, or they completely disappear and you never see them or hear from them again. And the 8100 unit would, I suspect, not knowing specifically what they do or who they are, but my guess would be that they do highly technical, clandestine communications, and computer exploitation, things like that, that are the higher level type of computer activities.
Yeah, you know, it's incredible the positions these guys occupy. Apart from having the hardwired back door, it's like the Microsoft CEO in Israel. He's a Telpiot program graduate, and of course, I believe it was Windows 10, wasn't it? Was written in Israel, and the guy's name is Asaf Rapaport.
Rothaport. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, what position? So it's one of these things. Let's say that somehow the U.S. government decided we're going to do something about the ARC processor in these Intel chips. They have personnel in key positions that can totally undermine any attempt that we try to take to override this hardwired backdoor.
I have a question about Windows 10. You brought it up, Booger. I have Windows 10 on my laptop and
I'm
jump on.
sorry.
Yeah, I know. I think you and I had discussed this once before. I have my computer open, and I was asking my boys, I need my Sharpie. What'd you guys do with my Sharpie? Guys, where's my Sharpie? Sharpie, Sharpie, Sharpie. Next time I looked on my computer, up on whatever, I think it might have been whatever page was open, up popped an ad for Sharpies on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Was that coincidental? I mean, I didn't, and I was talking to somebody about this and said, well, did he do a search for Sharpies? No, I was talking in my kitchen to the people in my house and the CIA and the NSA and I guess our friends over in Israel who did these little, I don't know, can you explain this for me?
Sure. It's very simply put, Windows 10 is a nefarious character, and I have one box over here that has Windows 10 on it because I do testing on it, and she's listening to me right now. She's always on. The microphone is never off. Think of it like this: when your phone is sitting down, right? You go, "Hey Siri," and the phone will do what? The phone will respond to you, right? All you have to do is say, "Hey Siri," and the phone will come on and it'll say, "Oh, what can I do for you?" That's because the microphone is always turned on. It's never turned off. So it's always collecting data. And if you stay logged in, as most people do, into your Google profile in Chrome or something like that, or Edge, then it automatically populates the database regarding what you're interested in, what you want to see. I can sit here right now and I can talk about coffee. And sure enough, because my phone is collecting on me, my Windows 10 is collecting on me, then I will have the same thing that happened to you about the markers. I will have different advertisements for different types of coffee products, or coffee accessories show up in the uh, uh, in the margins of the browser. They're all going to be there.
I've
Now
had this happen to me on when I've only had my telephone, my smartphone in
Mhm.
the same room. I didn't have my computer there, and I was just talking about stuff on my phone, and then it still showed up on my laptop. And I don't remember what the topic, but I remember saying, "Whoa, I was just talking about that. I was at my parents' house. I didn't have my laptop there, but the phone was on."
Yeah, you know, we speak Spanglish here, so we kind of confuse it. My wife's phone was accidentally on one time. We were speaking Spanglish, and it started posting on her Facebook what she was saying. But what's hilarious was the two posts it made was "Up your mother's chicken," and I buy lumber to look at it later. It was hilarious.
What?
Yes, yeah, because we were speaking Spanglish, and I guess it couldn't understand it. And
No
our daughters
comprendo, yeah.
called her, and they're like, "Mom, what's wrong with you? What are you taking?" She's like, "I don't. What do you mean? Your Facebook post?" She got her. Oh my God, how do I delete it? Yes, but it automatically was posting. Remember those two? Up your mother's chicken, and I buy lumber to look at it later. It was hilarious.
I think also Alexa or one of those programs had accidentally or inadvertently recorded a conversation in somebody's home and sent it to somebody else. Do you guys remember that story?
Not specifically, but I would not be surprised if that happened. That's so easy to happen. All you have
Yeah.
to do is all you have to do is just have it activated, or just have uh, it has to all it has to do is misinterpret what you're saying in such a way that it would automatically send the last 10 seconds, 15 seconds, minute or so of conversation to wherever it believed you wanted it sent to. It's simply just artificial intelligence not being intelligent enough to identify something that's a mistake.
Well,
But
when
it's
you
going to happen. It's going to keep happening for a
when
while.
when you were gone, I was sharing a story. I guess it's in France. There was a certain high crime area, and they're experimenting now with putting some listening devices that are about the size of a quarter that will detect certain noises. They're not going to be listening to conversations, mind you, so they say, but certain threats will be analyzed and will be used to notify police. So, what are
Mhm.
these sounds? Well, some screams. What else can be considered threats for behavior that's in violation of the law? Are there going to be keywords in there? Can they be taken out of context and to send the police? I remember when this stuff first started coming about. Remember with baby monitors, when people were realizing, oh, your neighbors can listen into you. Now, who can't listen into you on your conversations with these, technical assistance devices to enhance our experience on the internet? I'm so enhanced, I could be sick.
Yeah.
I think one of those dangerous phrases they might be looking for in France is "Watch out for ISIS. They're dangerous."
Right. Hey,
That'll
can
get you thrown in jail.
can I bring up an article? I wanted to talk about this last week, but I just introduced it and said we need to wait till Junk Bond is back from his global cavorting. And so here it is. And I don't know if you read it or not. You probably don't need to, but this was out of the Washington Post. Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg says he's going to reorient the company toward encryption privacy. The firm's focus, according to the article, will shift from a social network in which people broadcast information to large groups to one in which people communicate with smaller group and their content disappears after a short period. Let me get into the article and then we'll pick this apart a little bit. So for a generation, the Facebook has encouraged billions of people to widely share their updates and pictures. It's trying to reinvent itself as a place for private communication. Chief Executive Mark Zuckerberg announced a sweeping reorientation toward privacy, explaining in a lengthy essay that he would spend the coming year focusing the company's distinct apps, WhatsApp, Instagram, Messenger, and Facebook, on content that is encrypted, meaning data is scrambled so that outsiders and even Facebook cannot read it. But the shift, which shows how the embattled company is positioning itself for an uncertain future marked by customer distrust, declining growth on its core social network, and ongoing fights with regulators around the world, could cause an upheaval in Facebook's business model for mining people's information to show them ads. I think another problem people are having with Facebook is the crappy way they treat, and I can't say their customers because this isn't a matter of customer service, as we've decided and we've really realized probably too late. We are not their customers. We are the product. You want to jump in a little bit, Junk Bond? Then we'll get into this more. So, first of all, how realistic is this claim that the information will be private, and how realistic is it that this information will go away?
Um,
Try not to
it,
laugh.
yeah. So Zuckerberg stated on numerous accounts that he has no interest in privacy. His focus in life is to get everybody to share everything that they have. That I mean, there's no hiding or keeping anything private. His goal was to have people share and share everything.
And you
The
notice,
whole concept,
I'm sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, the whole concept now that he's going to do this is a feint. It's a deception. Don't be fooled, because you simply are looking at someone who is trying to boost some sales. I'm guessing. Right now, he's got about 11.9 million Class A shares through a series of funds. Okay. This guy owns a whopping 392.7 million Class B shares. He has control about 80% of Class B shares and 53% of the voting rights in the company. There is there there is no way he's going to switch off of what he wants to do unless there's a benefit to him. And that's what we have to look for. You have to follow the money. Who's going to make money off of this? By saying that you're going to take and make everything more private, your messages will delete like Snapchat. The technology is the same as the Snapchat technology. The bad part is with Snapchat, the only person who can't see the message once it's deleted is the user, right? And the intended recipients. It stays in the database. Snapchat was caught creating a huge database of pictures of people, which was shared with the U.S. intelligence community.
And think
And
about this, especially because Snapchat's a huge thing with the younger generation. Imagine how uninhibited, shall we say, people will feel, especially people that are younger and might not have the best judgment. The kind of pictures they feel that are going to be okay to send because they will disappear within 30 seconds, never to be seen again.
yeah, they're told it disappears. Guess what? Now you're told that the biggest social media network in the world is going to have stuff that disappears. Well, well, golly gee willikers, this is exciting too, right? Now I can go back to Facebook because that's just for old folks now. Part of the lure to this is that the magic of things disappearing, so you can't be held responsible, blah blah blah. But I don't think that's ever the case with any of this social media stuff, as you found out. 8-year-old comments can come back to haunt you. A 4-year-old comment about ISIS can come back and get you thrown in jail.
It makes me wonder how many of these groups earlier on were set up to actually ensnare people down the road or get people into some sort of a database. We had all of these patriot groups, especially after, I guess, 9/11. But I joined Facebook, I think, in 2008 or 9, somewhere around there. But how many of these groups were really set up as fronts to make people feel comfortable that they could say certain things that would be used against them later? What do you think they were maybe intending to set this up, and then they could categorize people into certain groups and keep an eye on them?
Oh, certainly.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
I know I'm on massive bad guy list. Give if I end up in a smart city, I'm going to get the motherload vaccine. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean this entire system too is set up as a syndicate. I mean, okay, for example, IMA Insurance, which is owned by Robert Cohen, which is in, of all places, Colorado. Which now I don't know if he is a Telpiot graduate, but I know he's hangs out in that exact same crowd right there in
Mhm.
Colorado. They're the people that provide the insurance for these companies that when their data gets stolen, all of this other stuff. So, I mean, let's look at it. You've got the Telpiot group. They've got the hardwired backdoor. They've got the people writing. Oh my God! I mean, they've got the people writing Microsoft 10. They've got the people as the CEO of Microsoft in Israel. And when all these breaches take place, oh, they also are the people who have Black Cube. Okay, not IMA. It's a totally, Harvey Weinstein's favorite hackers. You can actually find a different articles about him. He used Black Cube. So you've got the Israeli intelligence group running the hacking. You've got them running the internet data loads. You've got them writing Microsoft programs, and you've got them providing the insurance that's going to come in and help you and help prevent further breaches of security when all this takes place. I mean, it's like a big circular loop of sucking money and data out of you.
Yeah, and then of course, with the Intel and the AMD chip issue, uh, it's kind of like embedded in every single computer around the world, except for a very small group. Almost
Yes.
every computer in the world uses an Intel chip or an AMD style chip that is of latest generation. We don't have so, and here's the funny thing, and I'm not totally funny like haha, it's funny like that's interesting. Is that China has an extremely good uh, infrastructure set up to collect information that we've seen. We've seen it all over the place. The Huawei executives getting detained in Canada and using the whole company as a backbone to push information back to China about how they take and steal economic secrets. And of course, every government does it. Don't get me wrong, okay, folks, but they've got a very, very formalized structure. It seems like that. But when we say it about China, it's like those sons. They killed Kenny, those bastards. And here, if you say the same thing, because Israel has an extremely good program set up to do the same type of thing. Well, now all of a sudden you're anti-Semitic. Now, how does
Yes.
that work? I really have. I've got nothing against anybody who I don't even know. Uh, half my friends, if they're Jewish, if they're Christian, or if they're agnostic, I don't know. I don't go around asking them that, but I do look at what a government does.
Well,
And
I think that's the huge difference that we're missing here is when you criticize at all the Israeli government, you're all of a sudden anti-Semitic. If you criticize the United States of America, oh, you hate America, why don't you just pack up and leave? We have to be able to distinguish the behavior of our government with the characteristics and qualities of the people which are forced to live within the regulations of such government. And I think people need to understand, particularly with all the criticism that we're seeing now in the infighting of the DNC, which is very amusing, by the way, over perceived anti-Semitic comments. I'm not going to get into their true nature, whatever. But again, to legitimately criticize a government is not the same as having a racial hatred towards its people.
okay, if you say so, we're going to go with you on that.
Yeah. That it's incredible on how far this has developed, this hotel piat program. If you really look at it, and this is by a lot of different analysis, they can pretty well crash the world's infrastructure at will if they get upset. And the danger of that is incredible. Wouldn't you
Well, of
kind
course
of
they
agree
can,
at the same
Booger,
analysis?
because yeah, they've got infrastructure in key locations around the globe at peering points and DNS servers and things like that. That of course they can immediately shut. And again, so everybody ensures that they know that I'm anti-Semitic. Okay, China can do the same thing, and so can these here United States and a few other countries. They all can shut down the internet. They all can make it crash. So just in case you were missing something, the anti-American or whatever else you want to throw in there. Okay, there's a lot of people that can do that. This is what we call facts, and I hate when people just let the chatter of nonsense get in the way, or people that can't handle and address a fact for a fact. You have to use this hyperbolic discussion and start blaming people about stuff. It's really annoying.
It absolutely is. But let's say, going back to Facebook really quick, let's say now they're going to rebrand themselves and say the company's going to move to, again, having the smaller trusted groups. Well, we have those in Facebook. They have those little secret groups.
Right.
You have private messenger. And what
Yeah.
he's here is, as I think about the future of the internet, I believe a privacy focused communications platform will become even more important than today's open platforms. Privacy gives people the freedom to be themselves and connect more naturally, which is why we build social networks. Well, when you have these groups, these private groups, these secret groups, these messenger service, you are assuming, or they lure you in at the time, to think that you're talking to people privately. I mean, I was very naive when I joined, and I was told, be careful what you say on there. Oh, no, it's set to friends only, and these are private conversations. They were never intended to be. I think we were given the impression that they would be, because you have those options for privacy. Are we going to believe them when they say, now we mean it, now you can have your privacy?
Well, no, that's ridiculous. It's like Richard Nixon saying, now I'm not going to lie anymore. Right? Who's going to believe that? I don't think anybody is. And I think that there are plenty of naive people out there that want to believe that Facebook will start showing more privacy issues. Look, the bottom line is you can have a private conversation right now with some friends. You can have a small social group. You don't need Facebook for that. But if they can't get you onto the media to share that information on Facebook, then they don't have a record of it. So think of it like that. Why would they want a record of the conversations that people have in private?
And here's where we see a conflict, because what would entice, I think the trust is gone now, but what they're trying to do is entice people to come back with a expectation of privacy, shall we say. But by the same token, now what this article explains is that it might not be good for the global position of the company. And as you said, Zuckerberg has to have something to gain by this. Ultimately, his global position is going to be more important than what he's promising to the users with regards to their privacy, because as they're explaining here, governments oppose encryption. Why? They want to spy on us. We've been talking about that for the first hour of the show. He acknowledged that Facebook may end up getting blocked in some foreign countries as a result. Encryption will make it harder for Facebook to fulfill what he has described as a core mission of detecting misinformation operatives and other bad actors on the company's platform, which requires the ability to read the content of people's posts. On Twitter, Facebook former Chief Security Officer Alex Stamos said the law enforcement and people who care about moderating unwanted content were the losers of Wednesday's announcement. I submit to you, they will never, ever lose that access. Do you think that's a fair assumption? I'm not a tech person.
I think it's a fair assumption, as a matter of fact, because significant information has been gleaned from millions and millions of people. Maybe there's some people that are key people that need to have records of conversation. Maybe they're using it for blackmail for the future for people like this quote extreme far right person in France who was demonized and may go to jail now for her comments about ISIS. These things will be taken, they'll be held, they'll be brought back up, people will be prosecuted. There's no statute of limitations on these comments. So, and I can't see how that would be, if you have a political opinion, you're going to be identified as a political dissident. There's going to be no difference there whatsoever in the future.
Also, I noticed when they were going to try to figure out who was involved in hate speech, who is going to be involved in the fake news, one of their sources to determine the trustworthiness or veracity of people submitting content on Facebook was the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Oh, yeah. What's that? Hashtag fail.
And the other thing is they see people like us. I mean, one of the articles from Think Progress, and I addressed this on the article I wrote for the Abbeville Institute. I referenced Think Progress's hit piece on the Abbeville Institute's event in Dallas that I went to in November. And they even refer to Michael Bolden, who is the head of the 10th Amendment Center, as an extremist. His extreme views encompass this continental landmass. The United States government operates under the system in which it was intended to.
This is a hard break here. I have to cut us off here because I have to have this at an hour.
All right.
The Cerberus Radio Network. You're listening to Waking Up Cerberus, and the break you're going to hear is an old break. It has some people that are dead in it, but we have our Pinky in the Brain here in house talking about this. So here you go.
Cerberus Radio Network, protecting liberty and freedom from the flames of tyranny.
What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
There are many sanctions we could take. Financial institutions, for one. Believe it or not, the Russians have a very weak economy. We could do a lot more damage there. Individuals could be sanctioned. Organizations could be sanctioned. There's a wide range of options that we still have to respond to a Russian attack. When you attack a country, it's an act of war. That would have to constitute an attack on the United States of America.
Let me ask you this question. Is Vladimir Putin a war criminal?
I would not use that term.
Well, let me describe the situation in Aleppo, and perhaps that will help you reach that conclusion.
Cerberus Radio Network, protecting liberty and freedom from the flames of tyranny.
All right, everybody, we are back from break here at the Cerberus Radio Network. I'm Suzanne Sherman. Junk Bond Greg Carpenter is with me. Sandra Kindle, sorry about that, and Jeff Johnson here in the studio. We've been talking about a lot of cybersecurity issues here. I want to remind you, you can follow us on Facebook. Also, an announcement, all of our stuff, even on SoundCloud, YouTube, I did our own website. Well, one for me, Suzanne C. Sherman, kind of practicing because I think Junk Bond has gotten a domain name for us. So we will be having a Cerberus Media website up and running soon. Until then, SuzanneCSherman.com. If you go there, I have all of my articles under Suzanne's articles on the pull down menu, and all of our shows. You can click the SoundCloud button and the YouTube button, and you can hear all of our archived shows there. So give that a look. I just did a blog yesterday, and you can subscribe to emails. I will be getting some out. Junk Bond, let's bring it on back with you. Oh, his mic is muted, so we'll just keep going.
Okay, well, you want me to start working? I've got a few more things on the Telpiot, and then we can get into something else if you guys want.
Yeah, I think we can wrap up the Facebook cybersecurity issue. I don't think anybody's going to be buying into Mark Zuckerberg's promises that he's going to henceforth watch out for our security and our privacy, and this information is going to go away. I think the only thing on the internet that the public believes stupidly ever went away was Hillary Clinton's emails. They are there if anybody wants to find them.
Yeah, you know, it's one of the things on this, it's as I've tracked this, a lot of our supposedly accidentally stolen high tech, you look with all of these backdoors hardwired, all the people in these key positions. And Greg brought up the thing, it's not only Israel, it's this whole syndicate of, they make money by making sure our technology falls into the wrong hands, and then we have to spend more money to one up the technology we lost. You look at our F-35 technology, which we sold the F-35 to Israel. Not too long after we sold this thing to Israel, with all of the information and everything, it's amazing how the Chinese and Russians seem to suddenly develop the same technology.
It's interesting. I used to do a presentation at some of the hacking conferences, and I entitled it "The Friend of My the enemy of my friend is my friend. And it's really a play on words of the old Sun Tzu concept, because you have people that are friends around the world, right? And then you have enemies. But the same people who are friends in one way maybe have common enemies, and the same enemies may have common friends. It's a very strange and interesting world we live in. But what happens is information is eventually shared by all countries everywhere, back and forth. So if you share information with the Brits are friends with someone else who are friends with someone else, but they may not be the same people that you're friends with. And then by process of just sharing the information, now you have a situation where the information you didn't want to get to one country gets to that country. Because why? Because your friend has a friend who has a friend who eventually shares it with them. It's a big, I'd say a goat gaggle, but I think it's one of those things that shows how intellectually dishonest we are with each other when we say that we're not going to share certain information with one country or another country. That information is going to get over there. It always does. And we
Yeah,
pretend like it doesn't, you know?
it's like most of the technicians in Israel working on the F-35 program. Guess where they came from and what language they speak while they're working? Russian.
Russian. Right.
Yes.
Go figure. How did that happen?
Yes, they hang out in little Russian communities in Israel, and they fly back and forth from Russia all the time. Now, this is our top secret technology, latest state of the art, which, I mean, if you really want to go back and look at the SR-71 and all this stuff, we're kind of reinventing the wheel that was already invented.
Sure.
But yes. I mean, it's incredible. It's like, holy cow, we made a super advanced aircraft. And we shouldn't have made one this advanced, this quick. So let's just mothball this thing and just start redeveloping stuff.
Let's put the brakes on.
Yeah, so that we can make so much more money. And when you get into this thing, this whole circle, this whole illusion of secrecy, and you and I have talked about this, Greg,
Sure.
how they try to sell these traditional enemies to us that by no means represents the real security situation globally.
Well, it's like Suzanne said before, you know, you look at the people. You don't look, you know, if you're looking at the country for answers for one thing, okay, I get that. I understand that you want to understand what the country as a nation will do internationally, but the people, it's a totally different thing. We have situations where, you know, of course we've all been around the world once or twice or three times or so, and the people on the ground, you know, the people are no different than you and I. They may speak a different language, or, you know, they have a different skin tone. God forbid I should say that out loud, but it happens. You know, not everybody is a Caucasian male. As a matter of fact, I am proud to be a member of one of the smaller minorities in the world. The most common majority in the world is the 33-year-old Chinese man who's 5'6" tall. So I don't feel like that today. So hopefully, you know, oh gosh. So yeah, it's just frustrating. But now, Jeff, you wanted to start addressing something else.
Oh no, I just thought, you know, I think we've covered that is pretty well. We had some other stories, and actually, I just found one that's I think is kind of interesting, and it's nearby you, Greg. So this is kind of local news for you. Here you go. Roanoke County bans sleeping in cars. Now, I'm Greg. I know that's a huge problem for you folks there. It even bans it here. It says it's even makes it illegal to living in your car on private property. So if you're sleeping on your car in your car on your property, it's illegal if you lived in Roanoke County.
That's perfectly that's the purview of the local government to do that. If they want to be jackasses, that's fine.
I know it is. I mean, it just illustrates that even the locals have their own little bit of tyranny going on.
Well, that's what I would say. You know, we can fight with Washington, D.C. all we want, but your problems aren't going away because, unfortunately, this tyrannical nature is hardwired into people. And it seems like this is, I said last week, from the local homeowners association you may belong to. In fact, when I bought this property out here in Utah, I told the realtor, if this one doesn't work out, I have 2 requirements. I must be able to shoot on my land and absolutely positively no HOA. But we have 2 contingencies of people. And I talked about this last week. Some of us just want to be left alone, be responsible, be self-reliant, and look to each other in the community to help each other out. And then there's another contingency that cannot help themselves in demanding the authority to tell everybody else what they can do in their daily lives. In Park City, there is a request, which will soon be a requirement, that people not idle their cars for more than 60 seconds. I've had a guest on my show, Nick Somberg, who represented a family pro bono in Michigan. They were charged with a violation of a local ordinance that said you could not idle your car for more than a minute or let your car warm up with somebody not there. So this guy had turned on the car, let it warm up. It was below 0 out there, and he was going to take his girlfriend and her toddler somewhere in that vehicle. So, you know, this guy, being the criminal that he is, wanted this little baby to go into a car that had been warmed up. When he went out to the driveway on his private property, mind you, he went out there and found a citation. It was for almost $200. The justification for this was that it made it easier for thieves to steal vehicles. Well, how about the cops do their job and arrest the thieves for stealing vehicles? But instead, we have this under the auspices of preventing crime, which is really, as we know, a means of generating revenue. The officer claimed that there was a dangerous situation on the property because of the risk of theft. If it was, in fact, a dangerous situation, do you think maybe he would knock on the door and alert the people to the fact that this was a dangerous situation and say, I think you should turn your vehicle off when you're not out here? Because no, he just left the dangerous situation continuing on and left a receipt to show that he owed, or bill, I should say, to show that the homeowner or the car owner owed the Crown money for doing this. I said, where do you draw the line? What if it's actually in the garage and the garage door is open?
So he acknowledged the dangerous situation, but
left it.
As a police officer, did not address the dangerous situation, leaving everybody else in peril. And that sounds like the job of the police.
Yeah, absolutely. To protect and to serve, or to generate revenue. We will decide.
You're not going to have that issue so much here in impoverished southern Indiana, because most people, or a lot of people out in the rural areas, they have a home that's mobile and 8 cars that are not. So, you know.
You know, there was a story. I want to get back to a little bit more cybersecurity, because I know we don't have you here all week. You're going to travel again. But this was something, again, I mentioned last week and said I want to readdress when our experts are here. And this was out of Breitbart. And it was about home.
Let us know when your experts show up, would you?
Yeah. You're as good as I got. This is about, we were talking about Echo and Bixby and all these other
Bixby, yes,
that enhance our experience. This is
right.
Home assistants are now going to have a moral AI which could call police on their owners. So the Daily Mail reported that home assistants could soon report their owners to the police for breaking the law based on a moral AI system. The ideas of academics and are implemented. So much evil comes out from the world of academia, I swear. The newspaper reported that academics at the university, it was one in Norway, discussed the idea of a moral AI for smart home assistants like Echo, Google Home, the Apple HomePod during a conference. You mentioned home security devices. Hey, who doesn't want to be secure in their own home? Moral AI reportedly made home assistants to have to decide whether to report their owners for breaking the law or to stay silent. This would let them weigh up whether to report illegal activity to the police, effectively putting millions of people under constant surveillance. adding that the person who led the research says that the digital assistants should possess an ethical awareness that simultaneously represents both the owner and the authorities, or in the case of a minor, their parents. The devices would have an internal discussion about suspect behavior, weighing up conflicting demands between the law and personal freedoms before arriving at the best course of actions. So my question to you, Greg, is who programs these? How do we come up with this internal the parameters for the discussion that they're saying this machinery is going to have?
I warned you people 3 years ago that this is exactly what was going to happen. You're going to have the moral police right up your butt, and you have no idea how it's going to happen. And it's going to be the IoT that does it to you. Every move you make, everything you do in your house. Right now, you don't even know it. Your PlayStation is tracking you, even when it's turned off. Your computer can be turned on by almost any intelligence agency or high-speed hacker without you knowing it. You have invited this disaster into your home. That's why I don't have that crap in my house, and I never will until it becomes legislated for my good. And it's going to be legislated for your good. It will be. I guarantee you, you're going to have that kind of crap in your house, because that's what's going to run and moderate the use of the thermostat, electricity, all this stuff. And it's going to be processed through some piece of crap like that. And you're not going to have a choice about it.
Well,
it's going to record everything you do, everything you say. And as soon as you hit a certain threshold, or it hits a red flag word or something like that, you're going to have the freaking police showing up at your door. It's going to happen.
You mentioned the thermostat. I think in this cold snap, we actually had some, government officials telling people in these affected areas, hey, we need to have you turn your thermostats down a little bit so it's not such a strain on the electric grid, because everybody's has their heaters cranked all the way up. When I lived in California, we had rolling brownouts and blackouts during heat storms because the grid could not support all the ACs operating at the same time. So what's stopped them from just shutting us down themselves, because now they can? Well, again, we have a heat storm, so thermostats, they have to be set to 78, and you can't control that anymore. Just like we have these OnStar and all these computerized services on our vehicles. What's to stop them from shutting us down? Oh, I know. What if we have bad social credits? We talked about social credits in China. Don't you think that could come here? I don't think this is tinfoil hat stuff. This is all right here.
It's here already. Social credits are here. We just don't see it yet. The implementation is being put together right now. You're going to have it. You can't get away from it. I'm sorry.
We have it already with our, rate your driver. The driver rates you. For Google, I'm sorry, for Uber, and what's the other one? For Lyft. You can rate your transactions with Amazon. You can rate restaurants. At some point, your server in a restaurant can rate you as well. Couldn't this be something we could see down the road? So they're saying here that let's see, Google failed to disclose a secret microphone on its home security product. Junk Bond, you mentioned home security. Nest Secure.
Nest, right.
Failure to disclose the microphone was only discovered after Google announced that the users would now be able to use Google Assistant on the security devices, which of course gave it away that, it was there all along. And Nest Secure, doesn't that sound nice?
Oh, it sounds comfy, doesn't it? Makes you feel nice and just really, really happy to be in such a place. That's where little birdies are, right? That's where the eggs nurture.
You have a lovely family at home to protect. Do you have these home security systems in place to keep it?
I have security systems set up to identify if somebody brings one of those things near my property.
I'm sure you do. Actually, we've talked about it before. I have Wi-Fi collection stuff out in my front yard somewhere. I don't tell people where it is, but I can collect and identify if your phone or if some device is out coming up my driveway. I can tell you if somebody's coming through my forest in my yard. I have a yard with several acres,
And I have these devices located, hardwired out there in the forest in different locations. And I monitor that on a regular basis. And sometimes I see just, I find out that they're teenage kids just walking through the woods and stuff. And not such a big deal for that. But if I see something that red flags me, like the police walking through my yard, well, you better doggone well be sure that I'm going to pay attention to that. Hmm.
Well,
You don't want those things in your house, folks. You really don't.
no. Excuse me. The other thing too with these moral AI programs, I would think
Yeah,
that,
who's the moral person that programs it?
and whose views and philosophies are going to be represented when they come up with the parameters for these discussions. And you can look at the terms again on social media. Who's being censored? Who's being booted off and banned? Who is being allowed to speak freely? So, sir, and then also, let's say we have these parameters. Well, let's say for instance, firearms laws or marijuana. Let's say somebody's talking about medical marijuana. Is that going to be replaced, or somebody's going to talk about, hey, go get me some gummies down the road, blah, blah, blah. Well, that might be in a state where it's legal. Is this going to be reported to police? I just saw a really, really heart-wrenching, no, it wasn't heart-wrenching. It was an infuriating video about police officers going through in a hospital the, quote, final days bag of a gentleman hospitalized with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in a state where medicinal marijuana had been legalized, but they said it hadn't been put into effect yet. So there they were with their gloves and another cop standing by while they went through his bags because somebody reported this guy using marijuana. Well, we had a call. I love when they say that. Well, we're just responding to a call. And so what's going to happen? Can this be a phone call be made and all of a sudden the morality police are here?
Yeah, your Nest will make a call.
Yes, my secure Nest is going to turn me in. This is crazy stuff here, and I don't see a way to get around this. I guess if I have nothing to hide, I shouldn't worry, right?
Oh, stop with that stuff, please. That makes me sicker than anything.
Isn't that the worst?
The whole concept of being in a free society is that you should not be in fear of the government. That's the whole concept. I can't wait. I'll tell you right now, I have a looming 60 something plus $1,000 IRS bill that I had to figure out how to pay this year.
Ugh.
This is besides what I've already paid to them.
Everybody's squawking about illegal aliens coming in here and causing trouble. I have gotten more grief by law enforcement, government, IRS than any illegal immigrant has ever given me. When I'm driving back and forth to Park City on Interstate 80, it ain't them I'm worried about. I don't have an illegal alien detector in my car. I have a radar detector because I want these guys to leave me the hell alone. I want to know where they are.
Yeah,
I've brought that up multiple times. In Latin America, I would rather deal with a drug lord or a drug runner than the IRS or the FBI. They don't want to put me in jail. They don't want my money. Yep. Okay, they actually want me to enjoy life and make money. And as long as I don't try to do them harm, there is substantial liability messing with an American. So, I mean, oh gosh, it's incredible.
I saw an article, I'm trying to find it here right now, about North Korea and a risk of an EMP from them. We're seeing now, apparently the talks between President Trump and Kim over there did not go swimmingly. And now there's a warning about a EMP in North Korea. How valid a threat do you think this is, gentlemen?
I'll go first, I guess.
Yeah.
Anybody can set off an EMP. It's just a power surge in the long run. If you're really looking at it, just a massive power surge that anybody can do it. The effectiveness of it is limited by the technology of the reach of the EMP. Even if there were to be a substantial EMP that went off over, say, the western part of the United States, all studies show that maybe 20 to 25, maybe 30% at most of all devices would be affected. So the long-reaching destruction that we hear about all the time really isn't there. And I really don't believe we've done experimentations when I was at the Army Research Lab looking at the effects of EMP, and it really does not have that long reach into destruction that people think it has. If North Korea has it, again, what does it do? It annoys somebody. It gives you, gives you the opportunity to test your emergency services and have them up and out and working, and forces people in the economy to buy new batteries and wiring and things like that. So it's good for business.
Yeah, a lot of that is fear porn. I mean, it's goes all the way back to, I remember George Bush Sr. talking about Saddam Hussein. He's like, well, he doesn't have nuclear weapons, but he has the ability to deliver them. Well, so does the U.S. Postal Service. Are we going to attack them too?
Yeah. Please.
It was just one of those things.
Booger.
He doesn't have them, but he has ability to deliver them. And I'm like, hey, Henry Ford made that with a Model, with a Model T. He could have delivered a nuclear bomb. It just, people don't even look at the statement and how irrational the statement is.
So I think they're saying that this could come from a satellite, and I'm not sure how these are launched by missile or satellite, but it seems to me that we should have the capability to defend ourselves from them being activated if it was somebody that was, I guess, could really affect us significantly. Is that fair to say?
Well, not really. An EMP is just a generation of power. So you really can't defend against that in a traditional, non-traditional sense. You can't send antimatter against matter, right? Because we don't have the ability to harness that in that way yet. So
yeah, it's like
something we deal with.
You can get on YouTube and see how to make EMPs of different sizes and everything else. I mean, they have it on YouTube.
Yep. So we're going to get on a list now. Well, we're already on a list, but are you on a list for just looking that stuff up? But I will say the EMP.
Oh, you would be, sure. You certainly would be. Yeah, I mean, think about it. The some of the software that you download off the internet, like the Linux, Kali Linux, the one that's designed to help people do penetration testing, and a lot of people use it as a baseline for hacking, right? Don't you think that every intelligence agency in the world is watching to see what IP address is associated with the download of Kali Linux? Come on. They're all looking. So if you go to a website that says, this is how you make an EMP, you may just be curious about it. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's pretty weird. Or you might want to look at the Tesla free energy model and how that works. But you're going to be put on a list of people that really need to be watched because you are a different thinker. You might be a problem for the future.
Hey, Jeff, you sent us a couple stories. We'll change gears a little bit about some minimum wage. If you want to bring that up, I've got a great article on rent control also by Mises Wire. Did you want to touch on those minimum wage articles you sent us?
Well, there was a couple articles I sent that were discussing how the minimum wage has affected specifically the restaurant industry in New York City and oh boy, speaking English today is a problem. And I don't speak Spanish, so I'm really
you hang in there, buddy.
So we're
going to send you some illegal aliens to help you.
Oh, there we go. That just
no.
So there was a big push in New York City. There's a lot of restaurants closing. There's a lot of restaurants that are cutting their hours. A lot of these people that were pushing for these minimum wages increases have now had their hours cut from, say, like 30 hours because they were just under full time to 20 hours. And they were saying in the article that there were full-time employees now that were working more than 32 hours. We're now getting we're getting less than 30 hours, and now, for all intents and purposes, have become part-time employees as well. And this isn't specific to that. I've read articles about Seattle, where they've increased the wage. I've read about in Chicago and in Illinois and in New York, and it's coming everywhere. Every state just about is trying to push for this $15 minimum wage, and guaranteed the federal government's going to be doing that as well. And what are they doing? They're cutting everyone's wages. Everyone that makes more than $15 an hour will immediately have a decrease in their actual wage because now everything costs more. And the people that were making the minimum wage are going to lose money or lose their jobs because we're seeing the kiosks popping up everywhere. And technology taking over, so we go there and place our order at that computer screen rather than talking to another human being. So
this is just another unintended consequence of expanding socialism into.
Do you think it's really unintended, or maybe it is intended?
Yeah, well, when I say unintended, I'm kind of so, with the passing of the Affordable Care Act, how many people had their jobs cut back so they were just under the minimum number of hours where their employer was required to provide them with insurance. Now they lose their insurance and now they get booted onto the government exchange. So we see this whole takeover, and once again, they cloak it under something that sounds really nice. Affordable Care Act. I've lost my insurance twice now. I mentioned last week when you were gone that I tried to get my son on a private policy. They wanted to know if anybody in our family participated in motorsports. And yep, now you're limited. So we're booted over to these government exchange programs, and I got put on there, and apparently, my insurance is subsidized. I don't want it to be, but it is. And all I'm wondering is, when I pass away, is my estate going to be billed retroactively for a product that I never used and I never wanted? In fact, the only times my insurance, I've submitted my insurance card to a service provider, I've had to pay everything because it didn't meet my astronomically high deductible. So this is just some.
Are you trying to say you're not happy with this?
I'm not happy with this at all.
Wait till we get Medicare for all.
Yes, now we're going to have Medicare for all. And there's also rent control now. I think in in Oregon, statewide rent control. Kamala Harris is in favor of rent control. Could you imagine if she's going to be president of this continental landmass and impose some sort of rent control policy? There's an article here in Mises.org that says how rent control harms those it hopes to help. Well, we just discussed that with minimum wage. We just discussed that with health insurance, which is not the same as health care. But the state of Oregon is now saying they're solving its housing shortage with statewide rent control, because we know the government can fix anything. It would be the first state to do so. The policy is being sold as a way to make housing more affordable, just like insurance. In a state where 3 of its cities, Eugene, Portland, and Salem, are ranked among the 40 most expensive housing markets in the planet. Now, I submit to you, this is on its way to California, because California's housing market is absolutely insane. Comments, anybody?
Yeah, I think California is going to adopt something like this very quickly because they don't want to be second to Oregon in having excessive prices.
And what they say here in the article is nothing is more effective than making housing unavailable than this. It's even bombing homes isn't as successful in making homes unavailable as a policy such as this. Kind of crazy.
Well, it's again government meddling in the market. And to anyone out there that actually believes we have capitalism, that we have free markets, they're out of their mind. That went out the window at least 100 years ago, probably more than that. But we have government that's going to they're going to control your ability to provide a service, which is rent a house. Or in the case of doctors, they're going to take your freedom to do your skills in exchange for remuneration, and they're going to make you a slave to the state, and the doctors will have to take whatever the government provides as payment for their services. This is straight up Marxism, socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it. And we're quickly heading towards becoming a communist state.
Yeah, Alan, what's his name? Alan West had a tweet the other day about the United States. He says, I've never advocated social policies or socialism. And I just said, I don't think I've ever heard you challenge the national takeover of our education system. So, you know, we like our socialism as long as it is endorsed with the letter R. And once again, we have problems that were caused by government, just like we did in healthcare. And this article explains here that the housing laws themselves impacted rents and apartments. For instance, Oregon zoning laws would effectively shrink the areas where apartment complexes can be constructed. Well, as we know, when we have a shortage, the price goes up. As the article explains, this decreases supply, raises rents, and reduces the number of available units. Again, when we have reduction in supply, the rents go up. Renters would have had a room in the absence of subletting restrictions. Again, you can't sublet your homes. The restrictions result in higher demand as more people search for rooms. This pushes rents up too. So what are we going to do? We're going to come up with rent control and then adversely impact the property rights of the people that are going to rent out these units. In fact,
so that's going to be enforced by Nest.
Yes, exactly. This all comes together, folks. I know it seems like we're just rambling and going nowhere, but we really do have this means of tying this all together. Yes, Nest can report you if you're talking about renting out your room. So
it's pretty simple, right? You go ahead and you want to sublet to someone, and your area's been zoned single family, or you're in a non-sublet area, then you'll absolutely be able to spend the next 6 to 8 months in prison.
And look at business licensing. In fact, I talked about a city out here in Utah that was demanding business licenses for people that weren't even impacting their community. Like, they try to justify it. Well, it's impacting the community with delivery services. If they have an in-home business, traffic is impacted, and more services are required because of that home. So they need to pay. But one local councilwoman actually said, well, this is a means by which we track people. So every avenue of escape is going to be sealed off, and
There's your sign.
For you. Yeah, exactly. So again, they show the rent control. Oh, out here in Park City, also the first development program in 4 years has just been approved. 70% of the dwellings approved in this, it's going to be commercial and residential development. 70% must be sold below market value. This is in effect for 60 years. Tell me you own your property.
Did you guys happen to see on our Cerberus page when I just recently posted the John Galt speech about producers leaving? I don't know if you all saw that.
I didn't have a chance to read it. Why don't you run with that?
No, it was a speech. It's a video clip from YouTube. And it's just about a 4-minute clip. He's giving his speech. I don't know if you guys are you guys familiar with Ayn Rand in Atlas Shrugged?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's the speech from John Galt, and he's basically telling people, hey, unplug, leave the system, deny them your services, deny them your money. And that's what is happening in the book. All the manufacturers are disappearing. The bankers are disappearing. All the people that are making wealth that government's stealing to give to everyone else, they stop providing. They stop producing. And they start starving government. And that's where we're headed. I mean, we quite literally are headed there, because the people that work are going to just come to the point and say, I'm done, had enough, not doing it anymore.
Well,
and Suzanne, take that on a small scale yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Che Guevara said, look, under this new Green Deal, people will have an income even if they don't want to work. So yay for me. And that was exactly what I did, Jeff, as you just alluded to. I decided to have a personal secession as much as possible in this police state we're living in. And in California, first of all, I seceded from the public education system. I had my kids in a private school, and then I decided to do a home-based charter school. That was a state charter school system program. I left that one and homeschooled. And when I left the state system, do you know what the teacher we were working with said? Okay, I gave your name to the district. I said, what? You did what? Yeah, I submitted your name. So what she did was effectively turn me in.
They
Now,
reported you, yeah.
he reported me. I never heard from the district. They never followed up. But in California, you can homeschool, but you have to file what's called an R4 affidavit. At least that's what it was called when I lived there. And I thought, okay, I'll look into playing their game and see what they require. It was absolutely ridiculous. I had to have a answering machine for the school itself that made it. I mean, it had to resemble a brick and mortar school for anybody on the outside looking in. Well, then what happens if you want to have firearms in your home? Is that going to be prohibited because you can't have firearms within
school,
a house?
right?
School that they had out there. So what, and then, oh, well, let's say I have my secure nest. Are they going to report me if we're talking about guns in my private school? So be that as, and then an outside record keeper tracking what we were doing. So I never did it. I did it under the radar. Never reported myself in California. When I came to Utah, I never reported myself to the district. And I had a couple people say, oh, when are you putting those kids in school? One was a teacher at the public school out here. And I said, it's not happening. And nobody bothered me about it. Now I speak more freely about it because my youngest one is 18. So I'm not going to be subjected to truancy laws. But, the original law out here was you had to have the same number of hours and same subjects that the schools were teaching. Then they reduced that a little bit because they said, well, the purpose of homeschooling is you don't need as many hours, but you have to still teach the same subjects. So
they'll be able to track all of your teachings and everything you're doing with your Nest to make sure that you're applying exactly what the curriculum says. So you're doing what you need to do to create a happy little socialist.
Exactly. So we seceded from that. The other thing I did, and this won't last me the rest of my life, but I sold a home in California at California prices. And even though Utah's not cheap, I was able to buy a home for substantially less money. And I thought for a while, I'm just going to live off my profits from this and have no federal tax liability and very little state liability right now. But, we always have to pay some sort of federal tax every time we purchase gasoline or all these other federal taxes that we get. But that was my way of I'm not going to participate. I want to starve this beast. And that's what people need to start doing is just personally secede. Go to single income homes if you can do this. Raise your own children. I talked last week about the justification, our pediatrician, as I was interviewing him. Why do kids get chickenpox vaccinations? Because the mom has to, parent, but really typically the mom has to stay home with the sick kid and businesses are losing money. Guys, scale back.
Yeah, Suzanne, did you guys also see? I think I shared with you and Greg that article about miniature cows.
Yes, those were so cute.
I did it kind of tongue in cheek, but in reality, what these miniature cows are, they produce milk just like any other cow. But they're much smaller, about 42 inches. Most of them about 42 inches, and so they could be on much smaller pieces of land. You can do so much if you just have 4, 5, 10 acres. You can do a lot more now to make yourself self-sufficient and take yourself out.
What about if you were allowed to produce your own electricity? Wouldn't
What's that?
Be cool? What if you were allowed to produce your own electricity? Wouldn't that be cool?
Well, you can have
in many states it's illegal. In many states, it's illegal. You cannot have any type of energy production, electricity production. And that
that
leads
conflicts with the chosen monopolies that work with the government entities that say we're going to be the exclusive provider of your power. And if you
but
want to get solar, that's fine, but you got to be hooked up to the grid.
if you want to be, if you're a kid and you're going through school and the teacher says, "Well, what do you want to be when you grow up, Johnny?" Well, I want to create and run an energy company. Sure you do, Johnny. You'll have just as much chance of opening a company that makes tires. Why don't you just go work at the ice cream stand? You know, it so a lot of kids are taught to be employees. They're not taught to be entrepreneurs. They're not taught to create, make their own way. They're taught to follow with very few employers. And this
Yeah,
is a big problem that we have. They lose the whole, Teddy Roosevelt. Same difference, right? Teddy Roosevelt, rugged individualism concept of going out there and making your own way in the States. A lot of, and I understand a lot of countries that do the same thing. Okay, don't get me wrong, but he was a big icon in American history for many, many, many years. And when he made those professions, people really believed it. They really took it to heart. Now, everybody wants to be an employee. They want to be an employee of Amazon or Google or you name it. Why? Because they have great benefits. You got to understand the benefits package I get when I go and work for these guys.
stock options.
Yeah, and you can't, as a new company owner, you can't even come close to anything like that, or even have a chance to offer 1/10 of that stuff to your employees.
Well, and this was the purpose of Common Core, really, was and who was behind Common Core? The tech giants, Microsoft, Apple. Look how much money they donated to schools, the computers, their whole infrastructure, the informational infrastructure platform they use is tied to these tech giants who want to raise, just like in Prussia, where we had the origins of the government public school system. The purpose was to make good little factory workers. Well, that's exactly what we're doing now. Common Core is teaching these kids to be good little cubicle fillers that are going to just be drones for these tech giants. There's no encouraging for these kids to be innovative. In fact, I had a debate out here with somebody for all the new green infrastructure they want in Summit County. I said, it's not the proper role of government to come up with this. It's for the private entities. And their response was, well, they're not doing it. You know why? Because the government makes it too difficult and they give their grants to their chosen entrepreneurs. So, the little guys really don't have room to succeed in this. I had a neighbor who told me 6 weeks her kid was going into daycare. That little baby went into daycare. Well, he won't have the attention he needs, but at least he'll be safe. So she could go out and work her job. She literally admitted this infant, this newborn would not get the attention he needs. How crucial is engagement to the development of that brain. Later on, this kid was enrolled in every little activity there was, never got to spend time with the parents. Well, it'll teach him to follow. I said, well, good for you. I choose to raise leaders. But that's the mentality. We want our good little drones, our good little factory workers, our good little wage earners so they can do what? Pay their taxes. That's
Pay their fair share.
Yes, and there's nothing fair about it.
And it's not your unfair share. Don't forget, I'm actually, and so I was bemoaning the fact that I had to pay almost $100,000 just to the feds this year in taxes, right? And I think about the fact that I would be able to hire 2 more people if I didn't have to cut that money, that check off to the feds.
Right.
I could hire 2 full-time people to do work for me in my company.
Don't forget,
Instead, what's that?
no, that wall's there to keep you in down on the southern border too. If you try to get out without paying your taxes,
That's exactly right. Yeah, and that's what the graded tax burden is. The scale is to keep people from getting up and moving up higher and being able to get to the next level. It's not to have people pay their quote fair share. It's to
You know,
remove the competition from the people that are really freaking rich, because aren't they the people that everyone complains about in the first place? They're not really paying their share. Well, of course they're not paying their share.
Here we
What are
go.
you, stupid? What do you think they're going to pay?
Booger made a great remark about the wall, and I had posted one time, I don't want to be on the same side of any wall as these psychopaths in Washington, D.C. And they don't understand, as Booger mentioned, this wall can keep us in. They're already refusing to give passports to people that are derelict in their fealty payments to the IRS. What's going to happen when we have real ID? Are we not going to be able to drive anymore? In California, I know if you're behind on child support payments, again, I'm not advocating not paying your child support. Everybody should do the right thing. That being said, they are denying driver's licenses to people who are found behind in their child support payments. Well, now how are they going to get to work so they eventually can? You pile on these draconian punishments, but this also sounds like coming back full circle. Social credits.
Completely. Your nest is going to be reporting you. So you say you have the choice. You have the choice to pay child support to support one kid in a very narcissistic past relationship with someone who has tons of money and can is very, let's just say, demonically minded, and your family, your current family that you have, that maybe you have 4 or 5 children, and you're down to your last few dollars, just enough to either pay that child support to them or feed that family. And you have the discussion at your kitchen table, and you say to your spouse, I appreciate the fact that I owe this money, but if I don't, if we don't take this money right now and buy food for these children, because, God forbid you should raise your own food, right? If we take this money right now and we purchase food, the children will eat for the next 3 weeks, and I'll be able to make up the payment later for child support. Now, is that not intent to commit fraud? Is that something that Ness can say, aha, my moral compass says that you're intending to defraud the system and you're going to be negligent on your payment, and therefore we're going to have the guys come pick you up. They'll confiscate the $300, put you in jail, so your kids will actually have to go onto the system now. So they'll be paid by the system, so they'll eat. So don't worry. That's why that social net is there, to pay for your kids.
We were discussing who's going to implement the parameters for deciding which is immoral or illegal. It might not even be within the platform of a program, but it could also be people that are subcontracted out to just sit and listen. We know they are doing this with Facebook. They have people that are contracted. I discussed this when you were gone, Junk Bond. There is in Arizona a facility where people make $28,000 a year that are contracted out by Facebook, because Facebook likes to brag their employees make an average of $280,000 a year. So they contract these people out so they don't have to say, oh, we've got these low-wage employees working for us. But these people are just going through the social media. I am of the impression that this isn't politically motivated, why I keep getting these bans. I have a picture on my profile page, my profile picture of me holding a coyote I shot that was hunting around my neighbor's backyard. By the way, they have a 5-year-old boy. There was a reason I shot this coyote, and I was proud of my shot, and there's a picture of me holding it up. I have a feeling it's some anti-hunting person that has spotted me on there and now is just scouring through. 2 days after, also, I did a show. I did 2 shows, one on cultural Marxism, where I brought out the fact that it is now the intellectuals and not the blue-collar workers who are really moving the progressive movement here. In fact, they've thrown their traditional base of support right under the bus. I got a 30-day ban for an 8-year-old comment, not even a post. I don't even remember where this comment was, but you cannot go back and find this. Those of us normal users couldn't go back and find this if we tried. Then I did a story on the contractors in Arizona who sit there and just go through and go through and go through and monitor everything. They were talking about how stressful this was, going through all this hateful posts that they had to weed out. This is their community standards board. Now, Ty, this right after I talked about that, boom, I got another 30-day ban. I had a friend who worked for a tech company in Silicon Valley when I lived in Palo Alto. She was my neighbor, actually, who said whenever she was in HR, she was the first hurdle. I've shared the story before, but this all ties in. If she saw somebody on a resume who said that they were a hunter, and some people, I don't know why they put personal stuff on, but they do, that resume did not make it past her. It went right to her circular file. Her employer was denied the option of an otherwise qualified employee getting an interview because of her personal preferences. What's to stop that from happening to any of us here? And I get it all the time. I get criticism by this. Or if you're anti-abortion, I've gotten banned because I quoted a very hateful comment by somebody criticizing me for my stance on abortion. Guess what? The person that put the hateful speech up there, which I shared in quotes, got nothing. I got the ban. There is no place for people like us in today's society. We are not wanted on the social media tech platforms. We are not welcome in restaurants. We've seen Maxine Waters say, challenge anybody in the Trump in the Trump administration. We've heard Tim Kaine take it to the streets. They don't want people. I wouldn't wear a MAGA hat. I think it's, whatever. If you want to wear one, go ahead. I think it's a dumb idea, first of all, to think that you're going to support an elected king. Second of all, to think that one person's going to solve all our problems. Second, you're putting yourself out there. You're not the gray man. That being said, they do not want us in this society other than to support their programs. Go ahead, Junk Bond.
Thank you, Suzanne.
I'll be quiet and let you wrap up the show. Hey, are we going to be on tomorrow?
We be.
Okay.
I be. You be. We be.
I can be.
I will have to let you know.
Oh, that's right.
I can be on.
Okay.
Booger be.
Okay, so we're 3 for 4. Unfortunately, the one holdout is the one we need to run the show.
Unfortunately,
unless we become self-reliant and practice what we preach.
Oh, great. Now we got to be self-sufficient.
Oh my goodness!
Oh,
but we talk about the self-reliance when Jeff was talking about these little miniature cows. If people could grow, I've got my own chickens here, but how many areas actually zone out the possibility to have even backyard hens?
And they make it impossible for you to actually have business or a small little store in your neighborhood, right? You got to jump in the car and walk and drive a mile, 2 miles to get to a business zoned area where you can get to like a little bodega or a little corner shopper just to pick up some eggs or something. You can't walk out of your door and do that. It's all planned communities now. Everything is designed to force you to get into your car, to go somewhere, to go do whatever you need to do so you can come back into your residential based little community.
Or local,
completely the opposite of American society.
Yes, local zoning ordinances. We've all seen them where you cannot grow vegetables in your front yard. Do you know how cool it would be to have a little neighborhood community where everybody had their own gardens in their front yard and they could share as they wanted to and have these little agreements among themselves? But the compelling interest of the local agency to have a uniform impression in the community overrides the right of people to use their property as they see fit. Folks, You'd
be picked up.
Yeah.
You'd be picked up by the EPA or by the Food and Drug Administration for illegally providing some type of food stuff to somebody else that hasn't been blessed by a federal investigator. It won't work.
By the way, The American Community Survey, sent out by the United States Census Bureau, wanted to know if you grew vegetables or produce on your own property.
Yeah, I told him to take a leap.
Oh, I got that one too. And then they sent a postcard. Then they said that they sent another postcard. Then they said if you didn't answer, that somebody would contact you. They'd call you by phone. Then if you didn't answer, they would show up and assist you. What are they going to do? Hold a gun to your head while you answer these very personal questions, one of which is, has anybody stayed in your home for more than 3 nights? That's a long weekend, folks. All right, everybody, I hear the music. We are out of time. That was a great 2 hours on behalf of our good friend here, Booger, Sandra Kindall, and also Junk Bond Carpenter, Jeff Johnson. I'm Suzanne Sherman. I want to thank you for listening at the Cerberus Radio Network, where we defend liberty and freedom from the flames of tyranny. Thanks for listening.